And then once it's started,
Recording. Yep.
it'll be recording.
Yep.
And then you can either pause it or stop it down there.
Just pause it. Just pause it in the meeting.
Yep.
We good, Dave?
Yep.
Oh, good. Right, I welcome councillors and thanks for your patience to get us all online this morning. Breaking new ground for our council with our first Zoom meeting. And I know each and every councillor and our staff will be as helpful and appreciative of each other's as we work through this today, and I know we'll get there. So with opening the meeting, Councillor Murray, I welcome you back, and I know I'll speak for all of our councillors with the medical procedure you went through, and I wish you well as you're in your recovery, mate.
Thanks.
Our opening prayer, we give thanks for the contribution by pioneers, early settlers, for those who fought in the various wars of the fabric of Townerville community we have today. May the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be accepted in thy sight. Oh Lord, I apologise. The acknowledgement of country, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that are meeting on today. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging of the Yuckabil, Kamilaroi and Bundjalung nations, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. Councillors, we have no apologies, no disclosures and declarations of interest. There wasn't, councillors, was there? No. Confirmation of previous minutes with item MIN 3/20. Councillors, would someone who was in attendance of that meeting like to move that they are true and the correct record? I have Councillor Michael Petrie, seconded by Councillor Greg Sawyer, and I thank you. Tabling of documents. No documents to be tabled. Urgent and late supplementary items of business. Councillors, there's none. Community consultation, public access, there's none. We do have a Merrill minute. I'll deal with the Merrill minute straight up. There was a request from the New South Wales Office of Local Government. I apologise. From the local government in New South Wales, from President Linda Scott, councillors, and of course we're supportive of the recommendation and putting up as a Merrill minute. Any comments to do with that? No, I'm happy to move it as a Merrill minute, obviously. And I will ask for a second, please.
Peter Bronwyn here. I put my hand up, but obviously nothing happened there.
Well, I apologise, councillor, to do with this item.
Yes, and it must be now saying lower hand is my next option. I just was wondering what the immediate financial assistance was to support council employees in early education care when the government's put on free childcare. And I was wondering also if we have any staff not redeployed.
What was your second one, councillor? I apologise if we have.
In the last dot point,
yeah.
Do we have any staff in non-essential services who are unable to be redeployed? Are all hours active?
Mr. CE, do you want to comment there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The answer is no. The staff that we have redeployed have predominantly been from the library, and they've been redeployed in other sections to do jobs that we're running a little bit behind in. So from that point of view, it's been quite fortuitous. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
That's
Mr. Mayor, I got my hand.
Yeah, I'm coming to you, Councillor Berry.
So, Peter, no answer yet about the government providing free childcare. Why are we asking for financial assistance for early education and care when the government has announced, free childcare for people?
I just wonder, Councillor Bronwyn, that was one that this has been around for a couple of weeks. The asking from local government New South Wales for support here is the in a Merrill minute. I wonder, was this out and then they've announced that after this?
Well, I'm not sure, but maybe it's worth asking the question. We'd look a bit silly asking it something that they've already provided.
Yeah, no, happy to do that, councillor.
To everyone, not just council employees. Thanks. I'll move now.
Okay, Councillor Berry, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'm just wondering why they're only asking for 1% increase, because 50 years ago we were getting 4%, and we've been given more to do now. We're
Fair
going to
question.
give them 4% of, yeah.
Did you have any comment there, Mr. CE?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the percentage is around 0.55 of 1%. It may have gone up very slightly in the last year. The Australian Local Government Association at their National General Assembly last year, and I think also the year before, which is the whole of the country, had a motion go up and adopted a motion that they advocate for the federal government to raise it from 0.55 to 1%, and 1% represents what we were on about 30 years ago. So I agree with Councillor Very that 4% would be good, but in the local government New South Wales aligning their request to the 128 councils in New South Wales, they've aligned it to what the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly voted on last year. Thank you.
Councillor Very, that is where that's coming from. You happy with that?
I dare say there's nothing much we can do about it. I'd just like to raise the issue because I think it should be raised as much as possible, because all these fees and charges we're going to put on people, if we had our 4% like we should be entitled to, it wouldn't be happening.
Between the CE and I, Councillor, I'm happy to take that forward back to the President. You happy with that, Gary?
Yes. Yes.
So, councillors, I did forget to, as we do go through each item, unless you're voting against the item, I take it that we're all voting for, rather than us all have to go and put our hands up. So are you happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the Merrill minute done.
Yes.
Councillors, we move on to the next item in the agenda. It's recommendation for items to be considered in the confidential section. We do have an item to be dealt with in the confidential section. It's item in the hard copy COM 11/20 to local drought stimulus package confidential conditional funding. Councillors, with the approval of all the council, I would like to move this item and deal with it now, because we have Harry on the line and he's here to deal with that, and I thought that we'd do that now, then he can go and do his busy day as he does. Are you all happy with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have a mover and a seconder, please. I'll taking you, Councillor Sawyer, as the mover. No,
Yeah,
we'll go
I'll
with the
second
hands.
it.
So I'm looking
Yeah,
at
I'll
the
move
hands.
it.
Well, I'm taking Councillor Bob Rogan as the mover and Councillor Sawyer as the seconder.
Yep.
So Harry, with that, that we move into, I'm sorry, I'm taking that as we move into confidential. Now, can I have the same too, that we move to deal with this item? You happy with that?
Yes.
Righto. Harry, over to you to present the report if you can, please, mate.
Mr. Mayor, you need
Paul
to,
here, we're going to stop the recording.
Mr. Mayor, you need to stop the recording.
Yeah, so we have to stop the recording now. We've suspended
Yeah, I
standing
do.
orders.
I
Yeah.
do. Thank you, Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you, Mr.
Pause.
No.
No.
Yeah, you're on now.
On now?
Yes.
Yep.
Righto, thank you, Coff. Righto, with the officer's recommendation to do with item COM 11/20. 1, receive and note the report including the items not eligible for the Regional Tourism Bushfire Recovery Grant application, and 2, endorse the proposed items to be negotiated with the state government under local drought stimulus package confidential conditioning funding. Thank you for that one, councillors. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors.
Have a good day.
Thank you, same to you. Cheers.
Okay, councillors, we'll move on to page 34 in your hard copy to do with item COM 10/20, cancellation of Anzac Day events, Saturday 25th. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please, to deal with this item? Taking Councillor Sawyer.
I'll move it.
Do it with your hand, please. I'm taking Councillor Sawyer as the mover, and I'm taking Councillor Verrier as the seconder. Can I hand over either to you, Mr. CE, or you know what I mean, to present the report?
I'm happy for Nolan to present it.
You there, Noel?
Yes, yes. It's really just a report to say that all the events across Australia have been cancelled. And there was and I'm requesting, or I would like for the Mayor to be able to lay a wreath at the Tenterfield War Memorial to honour the fallen on Anzac Day, Saturday the 25th of April. But I believe that the Mayor would also like to lay wreaths at all the other memorials, but we will need an additional request for that.
Thanks, Nolene. Councillor Berry, I'll come to you in a minute, and you, Councillor Bronwyn. What I would like to do, councillors, is that what we normally do. It doesn't have to be, I'll be laying a wreath at the town memorial with the president of the RSL on 6 o'clock Saturday morning. But I would like, out of respect, that through the day that the wreaths get laid as they normally do in the outlying areas in the villages. And I would hope that councillors would be available to do that. We've got the wreaths already ordered, already ordered. So I'm just asking whether there's approval of that or not. So I'll go to you, Councillor Berry.
Are the books ordered as well?
Nolene will answer that.
Yeah, the books are, but because the schools aren't there, I just thought it would be more appropriate that wreaths, and the Mayor and I discussed this, that wreaths get laid, and so that there's something at the actual memorials.
Yeah.
And we can always do the books next year.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't know if we're doing the wreath instead in lieu of the books or what.
Yeah, I'll come to you just in a minute, Councillor Bronwyn. And councillors, if you are acceptive of doing that, I'd just like for you to take a photo on your phone, and we'll make a bit of a story of it through our council information. I thought that'd be nice, but I'll go to you now, Councillor Bronwyn.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I can do Drake on Saturday, but if we've got books already, can't we post them?
Nolene?
I've got the books, so I'm happy to supply the books as well. Well, I'd advocate for that, so that they get their books this year rather than off 12 months.
Okay, can I go through, and I'm happy to do this. Tom, are you available to take one out to Torrington?
Yeah, I'll be right, Pete.
No, before we go any further, so do the councillors need to come in here and pick up the wreaths on Friday?
Yes, I'll be picking them up from Logan Lee at about 3 o'clock, so I'll have them at the office here by 3:30.
Okay, so what I'll do, and I don't usually do it as chair, but I'm happy to, Nolene, so in the recommendation, we need another one to say that the councillors are going to lay wreaths at all the memorials in the villages?
Yes, yep.
So I'm happy to move that. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, I'll take you as the seconder, but please use the hand thing. And thank you, Councillor Berry and Councillor Berry for second. I'll take Councillor Peters. So councillors,
okay.
You've got Torrington, Tom. So Councillor Murray, we usually do Jennings too, don't we?
Yes, we do, yes.
Well, I'm happy to do that on my way, if that's all right.
Yes, because I'm in isolation for the moment.
I understand that, mate, and thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Berry, so then we get to Liston, Legume and Irvinville. Do you want me to do all of them, mate, or are you available to do any of them?
If you like, I can come with you. It's up to you, Peter.
Well, I don't.
Oh, I can't. No, I can't. Sorry,
No,
we can't go
fine.
together. Sorry.
Unless we have the
I'll go to Liston.
I do have the vehicle that we have organised does have the plastic sheet, so you can sit in the back in safety.
I don't think I'll sit in the back.
Okay.
I'm happy. I'll just go to Liston any rate. I can do Liston and Legume. If you want to do Irvinville, or I can do whatever you like, Peter.
Well,
we can
what
work
I'll do,
something
mate,
out.
I'll drop that reef off and you do Liston and I'll do Legume and Irvinville, eh?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Righto, mate. So, Rob, you said you're happy to go down and take on the Drake?
Yes, that's correct, Pete.
Okay, thank you. Have I missed anywhere? Torrington, Drake, Jennings, Liston, Legume, Irvinville. We've got them all, haven't we?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, councillors, for your support there.
Mr. Mayor, do we normally do a wreath at Mingoola?
Yes, I apologise, we do.
Okay.
Is anyone I'm happy to do that? I've wiped out put in the whole day to do this stuff, so Unless someone in particular wanted to go to Mingoola?
Do you want me to go down there, please?
Well, you can if you want it, Tom.
Okay, well, I can go out to Torrens and Reesley early and then go down to Mingoola later.
And it's at the school, with the memorial's there in the schoolyard, Tom.
Yeah, okay.
Where there's a
Okay,
big,
well,
it's like a sailing ship mast there in the playground.
yeah, I know the one.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, I'll pick up the reefs on Friday afternoon.
That'll be great.
Okay.
Well, councillors, I don't see any hands, so we're all taking, everyone's in favour of that report, so we'll move on. Page 36, item EC0/20. Can I have a move in a second here, please, councillor, deal with this report? Oh, Councillor Michael Petrie, look at you. Got Councillor Michael Petrie as the mover, and I'll take Councillor Bronwyn Petrie as the seconder. And I'll hand this report over to Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on matters associated with council's buy local policy after the receipt of legal advice, and to provide council with an indication of the next steps to be taken on this matter. So yes, in terms of the legal advice that council received, we were advised that we won't be in breach of the anti-competitive provisions of the Competition and Consumer Act, where council is applying such a policy in connection with the discharge of a statutory or regulatory function, but that we may be in breach of the anti-competitive provisions of this Act if we were to apply the policy and the relevant price advantage in circumstances where council is deemed to be carrying on a business, if the application of the policy or increase would substantially lessen competition in the market by giving buyers an advantage over local suppliers. Similarly, under the Fair Trading Act, same reasoning, but under the International Free Trade Agreement, there's nothing there. But so really, it's around the Competition and Consumer Act and whether we're giving advantage in relation to a statutory or regulatory function or carrying on a business. And examples of carrying on a business could include things like our water and sewer fund, because they're deemed to be businesses, and potentially other areas. I am still waiting for some further advice around that matter. The report goes on to note that a buy local policy doesn't necessarily have to be solely price related and can vary for particular circumstances. And the important thing is that whatever policy is adopted or applied, it follows the principles that I've outlined on page 39 there about honesty and fairness, accountability and transparency, no conflict of interest, the rule of law, no anti-competitive practices, no improper advantage, intention to proceed with the contract and cooperation. The guidelines state that the policy should be based on sound reasoning and include a statement indicating the basis for its use, be clear in application. For example, where an additional cost will be incurred by the council in implementing its policy, the maximum amount or percentage of that additional cost should be specified, and the particular circumstances in which the amount should also be acceptable to the local community. So this is really about setting limits on such a policy, and I've spoken before about setting like any other budget or council, setting a particular allocation of funds for this purpose if we would go down this route. But also spoken about a one-dimensional policy, a one-dimensional buy local policy based purely on providing a price advantage may not be based on sound reasoning if applied in all circumstances. And so there's a case for a multi-dimensional policy that the legal advice suggested. And one such example is the Queensland government has a policy called optimising opportunities for local suppliers. So it talks about the approach taken to any procurement will depend on the nature of the procurement at hand. And this includes low value and low business risk purchases, and procurement that is assessed as being high value and or has a high degree of business risk. It goes on to explain the things that can be done to optimise opportunities, including consideration of local benefits. So around this local benefits idea, it's saying that government buyers should consider any benefits that suppliers will bring to the local area. The type of benefit suppliers can bring will vary from procurement to procurement, so it's not a one-size-fits-all. Therefore, you need to identify what benefits are appropriate during the planning stage of a tender or a contract and incorporate these in subsequent stages of the procurement process. Price advantage is just one of these factors. Other considerations may be relevant, and we need to take into account of those in developing the policy. The Queensland policy speaks of a number of things that could be done to assist local suppliers, including holding a Meet the Buyer forum, understanding and eliminating barriers for local suppliers, and working with suppliers as part of a development program to improve their performance and capabilities. The best practice policy to promote local suppliers would be a multidimensional, faceted policy that is flexible and seeks to ensure that local suppliers are not only preferred because they are local or given a price advantage, but they're helped to improve their performance and capabilities. An important aspect of such a policy is incorporating a local benefits test, and that would consider things like local jobs, opportunities for local supply chains, opportunities for apprentices and trainees, and case-by-case benefits. And local benefits policy, local benefits should be readily identifiable, evaluated, measured, and reported on. So a benefit of incorporating a local benefits test, there's a scope to balance the interest of the local suppliers and the community as a whole, which is not necessarily the case with a policy based solely on providing local suppliers with a price advantage. The disadvantage of including a local benefits test is it may make the policy a bit more complex and require more work to evaluate and make decisions. I've mentioned in the report that the complexity, work and cost are not insignificant factors, and obviously it will require council staff to maintain a record of the cost of implementing such a policy in terms of the additional cost. These costs will need to be reported to the Finance Department after procurement decisions are made, and we report back to council in the QBR on the effect of those. I had mentioned in here that a purchasing officer position had been included in the draft 2021 budget, not just for this purpose, but for the central management and oversight of council's procurement processes, and for management of council's vendor panel software, and to act as a liaison between council and local suppliers. Also, a comment in here that there's been occasions where council has received complaints when a local supplier has failed to win a quote or multiple quotes, where the local business was 75% dearer than another supplier. Council can't breach confidentiality. We're put in a position where extra management and audit effort is required to defend such actions and prove policy compliance. And the cost to administer, the cost to report, and the cost to defend disputes is real and adds to the local purchase percentage amount. So, for example, with this current 5% price advantage, the real cost, which is difficult to measure, could be higher, could be 7% in terms of the administration of it. And this detracts from council purchasing power and therefore the capacity to maintain downward pressure on pricing. Another comment from the lawyers was that, in our opinion, buy local policies that consider, amongst other things, local benefits are more likely to promote the medium to long-term benefits of local suppliers and the community as a whole. I've mentioned in there that we've had an internal audit in the procurement area, and the draft of that doesn't say anything inconsistent with what I've said in the rest of the report. It should be noted that any new policy should have a strong focus on purchasing through local government procurement, because basically by going through local government procurement, they've done a lot of the administration work already for us, and we get the best price available by going through them. In terms of the next steps, so it's proposed that a new policy be developed around optimising opportunities for local suppliers, similar to the Queensland policy, and that the existing buy local policy be revoked. It will be suggested in this new policy that no local benefit be given to businesses tendering or quoting for council goods or services where the area of council the proposed purchase relates to is deemed to be carrying on a business. And I mentioned some examples there, but as I mentioned, I need to work through those a little bit more. One of the things with the Queensland policy, it's clear that for low value, low business risk purchases, and given Tenterfield's location, it will always make sense for some goods and services to always be purchased locally. And only if more than one similar business is in the Shire should quotes be obtained. So, for example, I'll give an example here. Another council I worked with, they had 2 tyre stores in town. So one year we used one tyre store, the next year we used the other, spread the business around town like that. We could do things like that. Obviously we use the local supermarkets, the butchers, the newsagent and so on. For small value items, that makes sense. But in terms of higher value purchases, there may be a weighting given based on the number of apprentices employed or new staff that may be generated. Obviously that needs to be worked through on a case-by-case basis, but this will provide greater benefits longer term than just price alone. Of course, for high value purchases above the tender threshold of 250,000, or where there's no local supplier of a water service being sought, no local benefit would be applicable. It needs to be emphasised that local benefit would continue to be only one of a number of criteria that need to be assessed in council's purchasing decision and weighting criteria. The quality, the experience of the provider, a range of other issues come into the decision-making process. It's proposed that once the draft policy is developed, it be widely publicised and public comment sought, particularly from the chamber and indeed all businesses, and this could be tied in with advertising council's vendor panel software and an education campaign on council's procurement processes as per the Local Government Act. And we could do that via Zoom meetings or engagement hub to engage with relevant stakeholders. So in terms of timelines, I propose that the draft policy be presented to the June Ordinary Council meeting, public consultation occur in July, and the new policy and amended procurement policy be presented at the August Ordinary Council meeting. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated.
I'll like move hands and things here.
You're right. Thank you.
Right. Yes, we don't want any local people taking advantage and think, oh, we'll bump the price up because it's council and we can add a bit on. As we heard from Tracy Butler, they run pretty lean, and while there might be a case of someone 75% over, there was also a case where it was 2% over, and the local missed out. Well, apprentices, etc. The size of the job is, because small jobs add up, and it does not necessarily just have to be the advantage in the weighting in things over 250,000, and it shouldn't just be about apprentices, etc. It should also include support for local groups, charities, and events. Like if it's a business that is involved in the community, and I think that was one of the things in Ballina Council, where they that was one of their criteria as well, is what level of participation in the community does the business have. And as we heard from Tracy Butler, they've put 8 apprentices through, 6 of whom I believe from memory have purchased houses in town and therefore pay rates. So I really think we need to have that weighting no matter what the size of the job. I'm just wondering, with that list of businesses, what's left other than roads and rubbish and vehicles, or everything else seems to be listed as a business. And I'd query why the swimming pool is a business when we don't receive 1 cent from the swimming pool entrance, given our current contract, and our water and sewage supply is all subsidised, as often we hear. So it's not really running as a business, is it, when it's subsidised by the ratepayers? Over to you, Paul. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Petrie. I guess the first thing to say is that whether a business makes a profit or not, that's not relevant in terms of deciding whether it is a business. Now, as I mentioned, in terms of the swimming pool, I am seeking some further advice around that. But in terms of water and sewer, water and sewer are deemed to be businesses, and we have anti-competitive provisions for in those areas. So we have to report on water and sewer as if they were businesses, and in the financial statements we do that too. In terms of the swimming pool, yes, as I say, I need to check out a couple of those things and get some further advice on that. Certainly take your point about participation in the community as something to consider, and once again I'll have a look at the Queensland policy and see what that says around things like that. But really it's just about it becoming a bit of a broader based policy than just price alone.
Fully agree, and I think we have some good examples at the time from some other councils, but I really would recommend that the weighting be looked at no matter what the size of the job is, because lots of small jobs do add up. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks. And yes, as I mentioned, over 250,000, the policy wouldn't apply. But it would be for those smaller type purchases where we would consider that. But once again, as I've mentioned, there would need to be a limit on the dollar value of the benefit that we give, as for any other budget item. Because I mean, obviously I've looked at some scenarios with the current 5%, if that was to increase to 10%, the possible impacts, and you know, depending on the price quoted, it could be 100% increase in the rebate that council provides. You know, obviously the rate peg's only the 2.6%, so so you just need to be careful to limit the cost increases to council.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, before we, councillors, any other questions to the report to Paul? No? Good. Paul, before I move on, I do want to commend you on the detail in the report. It is important, and Councillor Arson's here about what we do with our local businesses, and I look forward to the new policy coming in, the great name of the optimising opportunities for local suppliers, and even to have those workshops to work with the local suppliers, and it's a better relationship and a better understanding between what council's asking for and what they can do. So I do think it's got a really bright future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll just reiterate again that, you know, there will be some extra admin load involved in any policy. Thank you.
All good, thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 58. It's item ENV6/20 to draft development services, plan, sewer and water. And
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Can we just take the vote on that one, please?
With the one we just done?
Yep.
I apologise, Nolene. So that's unanimous, Nolene?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So
sorry, I did have my hand up, Mr. Mayor. The only...
I apologise, mate.
No, that's all right. I'm not as important. I get that. My only comment is, I guess, just to consider, even when we're happy to go forth and do the policy as Paul has suggested, just be aware that the more complex policies are, the more resources they do suck out. So there is, once again, another one of those unintended consequences. Just be mindful of when we review that policy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Cole.
Yeah.
Righto, so the next item is page 58 in your hard copy. Start again, it's ENV6/20, Draft Development Servicing Plan Sewer and Water, and S7.11 and S7.12 Development Contribution Plans. Councillors, the next couple of items are planning matters, and we will be recording the votes as the previous one. I apologise for not telling you that. And councillors, the other thing I did miss, with the new world we're in, I have shortened the time you can speak up to 3 minutes. I think that's fair. So be aware of that. So to May, I'll bring you in a minute. Can I move in a second to deal with this item, please? Councillor Sawyer, I thank you. And Councillor Michael Petrie as a seconder, I thank you. No, Councillor Very, I apologise. Thank you. To May, how you going?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Morning, councillors. So this report is presented to council to place on exhibition the draft development servicing plan for water, sewer, and also the draft developer contributions plans. These plans were prepared by Cardno and have been done in accordance with the relevant legislation and guidelines that we're required to meet. The plans are existing plans that we have in place at council, and they're required to be updated. And these are the draft plans that we're putting out for exhibition now. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for May to do with the report, councillors? Councillor Michael Petrie. Councillor Michael.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, did you have a question? Yeah.
I've had a look through these figures here, and the big jump from the existing ones to the new ones. The existing ones, you've got to contribute $18,708 towards it. The new ones, if you add them up, and you want to do them as $29,704. That's going up $10,996. And you know, the average block of ground around here, the value of them, they're selling them for around 60,000. Like you've got to pay, say, $30,000 towards the council, and you've got your legal fees, say $3,000, your survey fees, your commission. You're looking at about $37,500 in cost. And you take that from your 60,000, you're getting $22,500 for your block of ground. You might as well give it away. It's my idea. I think those charges are extremely too dear to go from $18,000 odd to $29,000. That's a lot of money.
Councillor Petrie, before I go to you, Mate, for reply, Councillor Michael, are you referring to page 58 with that with those lifts in the water at Tenterfield, Urbanville, and then the sewer at Tenterfield? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You add them up, and so you say that's for the Tenterfield blocks. You work out how much it is, and you might as well give all the blocks to the council, let them have them.
Tomei, did you have a reply?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The increase, the bulk of the increase is, yes, that's correct, in the water and sewer headworks charges. And in relation to that, the reason that that's happened is it's done on a set formula that we have to follow and set guidelines that we have to follow for those. Tenterfield's projected growth is lower now than it was previously, and there have been a significant number of capital projects such as the upgrade of the dam wall, the new water treatment plant, water and sewer mains replacement, and new sewer pump stations. And the result is that when you factor these into those calculations, it leads to an increase in the actual contributions. So that's just the figures as they stand in comparison to the old ones.
I don't think we can go with these figures. I reckon they're far too dear. You know, for your contributions. That's why there's no subdivisions going on in town. They're all going on out of town. Just too dear.
Councillor, do be aware, I've got you, Councillor Forbes, next, and Councillor Bromwich after that. Councillor Petrie, Michael Petrie, be aware, they're going on, I'm not against what you're saying, of course, Councillor, but they're going on display for 30 days, so that's where we're at. So any objections or other ideas to do it, that's what we're after within that 30-day period, so be aware of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I reckon that's ridiculous, the figures you're putting up.
Yep.
Like the people that done these figures and that, like they don't think we're in Pitt Street in bloody Sydney. We just can't afford that. I'll leave somebody else have a say.
Right, Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, look, I'm very much in sympathy with what Michael was just saying. So, but you know, you find those charges down the bottom there. I mean, so they're double there in some cases, 10 times the one from water with Jennings. Seems a bit odd that you know, you just can't have these increases, bloody, as a CPI increase each year. But so as I said, I'm a bit you know, taken aback by how much they seem to have increased, or the proposed increase. The other thing I'd like to explain is that last sentence on page 58, and I'd just like her to elaborate upon it if she could. that says the main change is the increase in roads contribution as a result of increased density, increased pressure on council's roads infrastructure in these areas. If I just like her to elaborate, if you could, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's referring to the roads contribution. So the second line down and the third column. So it's increased. Currently, it's 4,438, and the proposal is to go to 6,953. That's for rural residential subdivisions. So within our 10-kilometre radius, where rural residential subdivisions are permitted around both Drake and Tenterfield, and the 3-kilometre radius around our various villages. And the basis for the increase there is because we have an increased density and a potential increased density of rural residential small parcels of land in those locations, putting greater pressure on that infrastructure closer to those villages. So that's how that calculation's come about.
Thank you, Tomei.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Bronwyn.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm likewise wondering if it's calculated by a formula, then why is the dramatic increase in 1 year? Why hasn't it been an incremental increase year after year? The other query I had was in the tables on the bottom of page 60 and the top of page 61 with the sewer and water, capital charge and the reduction amount. Why the reduction amount in the water is a negative figure and then is added to the capital charge, whereas in the sewer at the top of page 61, the reduction amount is a positive figure and deducted. So it might be something, an accounting thingy, but if that could be explained, please.
Thank you, councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the charges, the original plans were developed back in 2012, adopted in 2012. So they were done on the basis of what the assets were that council had to basically put into those formulas at that point in time. So as I mentioned before, since that time, there's been significant capital infrastructure works undertaken, which basically put that pool of dollars, increase that pool of dollars. In addition to that, there's been changes in the guidelines for the water and sewer infrastructure contributions. So the plans that were adopted back in 2012 were done under a different set of criteria than what we're required to do now. That's in answer to that one. The other one, it is a bit of an accounting one. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look back through that. Unless Kylie, you can speak to that one, or Fiona.
I'm not going to lie, I'm not clever enough right this second to answer it. We had a presentation, and I commend Tomei on getting through all of it. It is quite complicated, which is why we have actually had these prepared externally, both obviously for that look. Bearing in mind, they also do need to be peer reviewed. So those plans also need to undertake an audit, in response to the legislation that's required. So we might take that one on notice from Councillor Bronwyn and actually try and provide you with a clear answer on that.
Before I go to you, Councillor Bronwyn, Councillor Forbes, can you lower your hand unless you were going to? It's just how I'm reading, mate. Thank you. So I'll go to you, Councillor Bronwyn, and you've indicated Councillor Berry. Councillor Bronwyn?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So just to be absolutely sure, this is for new subdivisions within Tenterfield Shire or the road ones out in the rural residential, is that right? Just to be absolutely sure.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Yes, so it's not for any of the existing subdivisions that have got land for sale.
No, that's right.
Okay. Well, I mean, my concern is, we're saying we've got less people living in town, and this is a disadvantage for people wanting to put up new blocks, as Councillor Michael said. I was just interested in how existing vacant land sales are going.
Through Mr. Mayor, I couldn't answer that. I guess that's a question for our real estate agents.
Thank you. Councillor Berry, you had a question?
I was just going to comment on what Councillor Petrie had to say, Councillor Bronwyn Petrie. That was at the workshop, and those things were explained, because I think I asked the similar question, or if I didn't, Brian might have, and I don't remember the answer for the second part of it.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Michael, you've indicated again, have you?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
mate.
I just like to ask, to me, like up here where I live up here, if I wanted to sell a block of ground up here, I've got to pay this sewage contribution to $12,263, but there's no sewage here to connect to. Would I have to pay that towards a contribution if I split a block of ground up here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the contribution is required if it is able to be serviced. So if you have a service availability, that contribution would be applied. So within that village zone, and if there is an ability to connect, that generally is charged. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's all right. If you had the sewage running past your block here, I get no sewage up here, I wouldn't have to pay that $12,263, would I?
Oh, I'd have to look at that one. Sorry, councillor. I'd have to look at your specific circumstances.
Well, any block of ground that there's no sewage at, and you can't connect and that sort of thing. If that's in the subdivision, I think the whole thing wants pulling back into gear a bit myself.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to councillors, so this document and the plans are going into public exhibition. They're not set in stone. So these are going for public exhibition, and it is actually for 30 working days. So it's a significantly extended public notification period. And during that time, we had committed to do some workshops with the interested parties. So whether that's developers, agents and owners in town, we'll definitely still be doing that. It will be in a different format, probably in a similar format to what we're doing in these council meetings. So we'll certainly be engaging with them. Bearing in mind, it will come back to council with the various comments, and council has the option. These are the maximum charges. There is an option for council when they go to adopt these plans to reduce those, but bearing in mind that those reductions have to be offset elsewhere. And as to where that comes from, that would need to be a decision for council to make.
Thank you, Tamay, and that's exactly what was the recommendations on page 59. Councillor Vera, you still got your hand up. Did you have another question, mate, or not? No, you're on mute, councillor. Thank you. Okay, councillors, it is a planning matter, so we'll put down that it's been passed unanimous, Nolene. That goes on exhibition. You there, Noel?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillors, we move on to page 65 to do an item ENV7/20 development application 1920x1080 Memorial Hall extensions, 96 Molesworth Street. Can I have a mover and a seconder here, please, to deal with this item, councillors? Thank you, councillor Sawyer. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? I'll take councillor Bromwich as a seconder. Thank you. And I'll hand over to you again, Tamay, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. The report is presented to council with a recommendation for approval for the development application for the extensions and refurbishment of the Tenfield Memorial Hall, subject to the conditions in the draft consent document. The extensions comprise refurbishment, female and male amenities in the existing building. The reason that it has come to council is that in accordance with council's policy on delegations for dealing with DAs, it triggers the requirement to come to council because of the dollar value there of the works, and that it is actually a council-owned property. But the recommendation is there for approval subject to conditions. It's a relatively straightforward DA. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamay, any questions to Tamay to do the report, councillors? Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to congratulate the designers because they actually put in more female toilets than male ones, which seems to offer.
Not surprised.
Okay.
Councillor Vera, you've indicated. Question?
Yeah, I just wondered why the toilets have been shifted. It wasn't enough room where they were originally. I don't know the building all that well, so I'm just asking that question.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that one. In terms of shifting them, they are actually in new amenities, as opposed, Councillor Berry, to any reinstatement. So we still have the amenities in the front of the hall, but these are additional amenities to what we already have.
Thank you, Kylie. Okay, councillors, the report's there for approval. We're all happy? So Noeline, that's
Yes.
unanimous?
Thank you.
Okay, page 70, councillors. Item ENV820, Local Strategic Planning Statement. Can I have a move and a second to deal with this item, please? Councillor Verry, you still got your hand up. I'm going to take you as a mover if you're happy. And I'll take Councillor McNish as a seconder. Thank you, councillor. And once again, I'll hand over to Tamay to present the report.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. This is the draft Tenterfield Local Strategic Planning Statement presented to Council for endorsement to proceed to community consultation. Similar with our previous documents that we've looked at, it is to go on public consultation to discuss, I guess, the various components of that statement. The statement, the basis of the statement was there are certain requirements to the statement that have to be included within it. The Department of Planning did assist with the baseline document, and myself and council staff have added to that document. It is still a draft, and we realise there will be probably some fine tuning on that. This is a legislative requirement that all councils must have local strategic planning statements, and they set out a vision, about a 20-year vision for planning across the shires in New South Wales. We have a deadline. At this point, the deadline is still set at the 30th of June for these to be actually adopted. We're not quite sure under current circumstances whether that will be extended, but we will go out and do the exhibition via our engagement hub and online exhibition processes that are now in place during the current times. But happy to take any questions or comments.
Councillor McNish, thank you, Tamay. Councillor McNish, I've got you up there as a question. Is that correct? Councillor McNish? He's gone. Councillor Verry, I've got you and Councillor Bromwich-Petrie. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, councillor.
Do you want to take me or Bromwich first?
No, I'll take you. Thank you, councillor.
Okay, growing up in the 60s and the 70s, remember on the news, every so often you'd hear about the Russian 7-year plan and 5-year plans and all this type of rubbish. Now we're doing the same in Australia. I think just a lot of rubbish, all these plans. I don't think they're going anywhere or they serve any worthwhile purpose. It's more of a comment than a question. Thank you.
Noted, councillor. Councillor Bromwich, question to the report.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just think the heading shouldn't just have Strategic Plan 2040. It should go 2020 to 2040. Otherwise, just for clarity. The other thing is, how do we make our own changes? Do we have to, as council, put in a submission to ourselves, or do we just have recommendations from councillors and staff, or how do we actually do our own? I understand Department of Planning has put this together, but there are some things there I think should be altered or added to. For instance, tourism is missing from the industry thing. It talks about meals and accommodation, but doesn't actually refer to tourism until you get to agri-tourism. How do we, as a council, make our own changes to the document?
Thank you, councillor. Tamay?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm open to suggestions on that, whether we might hold a councillor workshop perhaps to run through it, or individual submissions. I think it's relatively open to discussion.
Thank you. Councillor McNish, you're back. Did you have a question to do with this report? Do mute yourself, councillor.
It was the last one I was going to speak to, but I was a bit slow with the fingers here and that sort of thing. No, I'm fine with this one, Peter.
I apologise, councillor, if I missed you there.
It's probably my fault, Pete.
I know, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Councillors, any more questions to do with the report on page 70? No?
No.
Okay, so I'm taking that, Noeline, that's unanimous. I haven't had anyone vote against it.
Me. I'm voting against it, Peter. It's just a waste of time.
I apologise, councillor. You still got your hand up. So you want your name recorded against it, councillor?
Yep.
Okay. Did you get that, Noel?
Yes, I'm right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, move on to page 73, councillors. It's item ENV 9/20, purchase of a new Walker mower. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please?
Yeah, I'll do that, Peter.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Peters has moved. Councillor Rogan has seconded. Thank you, both you councillors. And I'll hand over to Fiona to present. Hope I'm in the right. To present this, Fiona.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is to request the approval for the purchase of a Walker catcher mower to replace Council's existing Toro 42-inch zero-turn mower. This will increase efficiencies, productivity, give us greater capacity and diversity with the optional attachments that are offered with the machine. It's priced at an indicative cost at the moment of $50,000.
Fiona, in our brief with the business paper yesterday, was a couple of questions. I'm happy to leave, but Deputy Mayor actually mentioned them. We trading the old unit in, and I see with the Walker mower has optional attachments. Are they in the deal, or because I see that all of them be useful?
Yes, that's right, Mr Mayor. The trade value we're expecting to get on the existing Toro is between $6,000 and $8,000. The outright price, we've got a quote today from Walker themselves that says all attachments, including the blower, the sweeper, the fertiliser spreader, the boom spray and the loader bucket, including delivery, is $57,947, including GST.
Good deal to me. Councillor Peters, did you have a question to do with the report?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. More observation. I've got one of these Walker mowers and they're the best bit of gear made. You can cut at 11 mile an hour if you can sit on the thing. It's like riding a camp horse. You're not careful, you get thrown off the seat. You've got to put the seatbelt on. Simple as that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Right.
I've never seen anybody ride a horse with a seatbelt.
Fiona, thanks for the report. So obviously councillors are all in favour of accepting the report.
Yes.
Yep.
Councillors,
Yes,
we'll move on. Thank you. We'll move on to page 78. It's item GOV15. Before I do, anyway, no, we'll do that. GOV15/20, endorsement of motions for consideration of Australian Local Government Association, the Alga Board. I've got some hands up. Councillor Sawyer, I'm taking you as the mover, and Councillor Very, I'll take you as the seconder for this item, and I'll hand over to the CE or Nolene to present this report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, it's pretty self-explanatory. Although the Australian Local Government Association won't be having a National General Assembly this year because of the coronavirus and the COVID-19 threat, they wrote to councils asking for motions to go up. So the motions can go to their board for review, as if it's not the same, obviously, as having 900 people in a room voting, but it's better than nothing at all. I wouldn't like to be the chairperson of a Zoom meeting with 900 people in it. I think that would be a little hard. So their compromise of having the motions go to the board for consideration, I think, is a good one. Council has spoken and made quite a few different resolutions and motions to go to both state and federal local government, the New South Wales Local Government Association, as well as the Australian Local Government Association in relation to this. And this is just firming it up. Happy to take any questions by exception.
Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just had two suggestions for amendment. In A, where we've got Forestry Corporation, New South Wales is the only state that calls it Forestry Corp. Other ones are state forest. So if we just delete corporation, because forestry held lands everyone would know what it meant.
Yeah.
And or to state forest held lands, something like that.
Yeah.
And in C, where it says in lobbying the New South Wales state government and others, why don't we just put in lobbying state governments rather than New South Wales state governments and others? Because it's.
I apologise, Councillor. Which one are you referring to with this one?
In C, where it's got that the ALGA, the Australian Local Government Association, supports Regional Development Australia committees in lobbying the New South Wales state government and others to develop a funded business case. Shouldn't it be lobby? Do you want this in all states or just New South Wales?
Very good question, Councillor Petrie. We could just cross off, as you suggested, and just put state governments, because we want it nationally, because the officer's recommendation refers to ALGA, which is the national body.
That's right. It just didn't make sense to me. So thank you very much. There were only 2 amendments. So
Get them, Nolene?
Yeah, I'm right. I've got that.
Thank you.
I'll just have to resubmit those to the department because they've already gone.
Oh, okay. Councillor Berry, you've indicated?
Yeah, with B, I think in the future when we get back to our normal meetings, it might be worthwhile having Mac Reese come to council and give us a 20-minute talk. Just a suggestion.
Good suggestion, Councillor. In a workshop.
Yes, and a workshop or whichever you like. He's a very interesting character.
That's what we need. Righto, councillors, the report's there. No one against? Good. Can we move on to page 82? It's item GOV 16/20, Operational Plan 1920, 6-monthly delivery program to December 2019. Can I have a move and a second here, please? Councillor John McNish, I'll take you as the mover. Seconder there, please. And Councillor Bronwyn-Petrie, I'll take you as the seconder. Thank you. And I'll hand over to Erica to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is to provide the 6-month summary to council of delivery of actions in the operational plan for this current year, and that's to 31 December 2019. The report summary supports the requirement of the Chief Executive to ensure that progress reports are delivered to council with respect to principal activities detailed in our delivery program at least every 6 months. Councillors will note that this is a 6-month summary, a collation of the monthly operational reports that they received from July to December last year.
Thank you, Erica. Any questions to Erica? Councillors? Councillor Berry, have you still got your hand up?
Yeah, I just put it up now.
Right, thank you, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor.
Fire away.
I'm just worried about where have we got to with including a disability person from Urbanville to be on the committee, on the disability committee. I know there was some interest there, whether we can do it by Zoom or Facebook or whatever you call that thing. I don't know, but I think we definitely need somebody there, especially with the 2 hospitals there.
Good point, Erica.
Mr. Mayor, that would be a question for the responsible area, so I can take that under advisement and have them follow up. So that would be Harry Bolton, and we can get Harry follow up with that.
Thank you, Erica. Mr. CEO, you have indicated, or did you?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but Erica has answered the question.
Right, thanks, mate. No more questions to Erica, councillors? No? So I'm taking that we're unanimous to accept the report. We'll move on to page 84. It's item GOV 17/20, joint organisation membership for 2021 financial year. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please? Councillor Berry, you still got your hand up. I'm going to take you as a mover. Can I have a seconder, please? And Councillor Michael Petrie, I'll take you as a seconder, and thank you. Kylie, did you want to present this report? No? Or Paul?
I can.
Thank you, Paul.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So yes, this report is around the New England Joint Organisation of Councils membership fees for 2020-21. You might recall that at a previous meeting, it was resolved that the Mayor advised NEJO that council is prepared to pay $5,130 as a membership fee, which is 2.6% increase on the $5,000 that was payable this financial year. The Mayor requested the NEJO approach the state government to fully fund the operations of joint organisations, and that the Mayor advised NEJO that should the amount that Tenterfield Shire Council was prepared to pay in membership fees not be accepted, the Council will further consider its membership of the NEJO for 2020-21 and beyond. Now, subsequent to that report going up, there was a further NEJO meeting where membership was discussed and membership fees were discussed. And at that meeting, the NEJO voted unanimously for Tenterfield Shire Council's membership fees to be $13,180 for 2020-21, which is $8,180 more than the current year, or 264% increase on the current year. So it's for Council to consider the membership of the NEJO for 2021, given that vote. That we accept, a recommendation is that we accept the membership fee for 2021 as advised by NEJO, and that this be incorporated in the 2021 annual budget, that $13,180 amount, and that membership of the NEJO be reviewed annually based on an analysis of the benefits membership brings versus any additional membership costs in the future. It, as I alluded to in my previous report, it does concern me a little about the costs involved in essentially another layer of administration of in the local government space. Obviously, if there's benefits to councils from this organisation, that's great. But just something that needs to be monitored, I think. But I'll leave it over to you to discuss.
Happy to. Councillors, I've got Councillor Sawyer, Councillor Very, Councillor Rogan, Councillor Peters and Councillor Bromwich-Petrie in that order. So I'll go there with any questions to Paul or myself. I'm happy to take questions. So Councillor Sawyer. Councillor Sawyer, you've indicated.
Yes, Peter. Mr Mayor, thank you. The unmute button got stuck. Wouldn't have a go.
You're good, mate.
The situation with this is, as I've discussed with you yesterday and the CEO, it's just a blatant money grab. And given my previous experience in local government, I did say at the time when we voted about this membership in the very first place, it was just another little avenue open to the government for amalgamations. I've seen nothing other than confirmation of that little suggestion from the increase in fees. After our discussion yesterday, I'm probably prepared to accept the recommendation on the basis that we watch closely what we get out of it for our money for the next 12 months. And if we don't get a positive result in financial terms and benefits, we jettison membership of NEJO immediately in 12 months' time based on a 12-month assessment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Very.
Yeah, just agreeing everything Greg said, except I will be voting against it. I don't think we should be in NEJOs. I think it's just another layer of rot.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rogan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've just got a couple of little questions. And the first one is, well, initially when these joint organisations were first spoken about, I was under the impression, maybe I got it wrong at the time, that that in the end we didn't really have a choice but to join one of these things. So is that not the case? So we can we opt out? That's the first question. If you want to answer that, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, plenty of well, there's not. Coffs Harbour is not in a NEJO. Sorry, not NEJO, joint organisation. Mr C, can you help me there? There's the other councillors that aren't in them.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. The three largest regional councils in New South Wales aren't actually in joint organisations, which is Wagga, Dubbo and Coffs.
Yep, there you go.
The legislation at the time was quite rushed, and councillors may remember that there was an instrument to join a JO, but the legislation was written such that there wasn't an instrument to leave a JO. They also got councils, they held councils' hands behind their back really by intimating that if you weren't on a JO, you wouldn't have as much capacity for advocacy with state government, and you wouldn't have any influence over regional projects and regional development. I'm leaning towards more Councillor Veary and Councillor Sawyer's comments, because the one thing we've been extraordinarily successful of over the last 12 months, which has been pushing the Mole River Dam, I don't think would have happened if we didn't go it alone, because an example of that is the New England Highway. The two smallest councils have got the two smallest staff contingents and the least opportunity to do strategic planning were the only two councils that submitted strategic plans for the development of the New England Highway in the time that the government gave us late last year, and I take my hat off to our engineering staff for that. So I'll be very interested to see what happens in 12 months. I'm a bit sceptical because we're getting mixed messages from different ministers, and occasionally the master-servant relationship pokes its head up again in relation to the JOs. But I'm hopeful, I'm genuinely hopeful that it's sorted out in the next 12 months, because in theory it would work. I'm disappointed that the amount of contributions has gone up. It could have been worse than that. It could have been 17K if it was evenly distributed. I'm also going to be taking a bit of a watching brief on what Armidale thinks of it, because they'll end up having to pay $28,000, and when it was initially talked about, it was equal money for one vote each.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Rogan, you indicated you had another question.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, thanks for that explanation, yourself and CE. What I was concerned about was initially back in December, I think it was indicated that council's choice was to tell the New England JO that we would pay 5,000, whatever it was, and not anymore. But since then, there's been another meeting, and it says it was voted upon unanimously that we'd agree for 13,000 something. So I'd like to know whether there's been some benefits in that time that we know about, and that prompted our decision to say, okay, we'll pay the increase. If we haven't received, like the JO's been there long enough now to see whether it's going to reap any benefits from it. So I think if there's been no benefits forthcoming, I'm not supportive of us being in the JO at all. So I wouldn't be supportive of this recommendation. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'll come back to answer your question in a minute. I'll go to Councillor Bronwyn-Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, I apologise, Councillor. Councillor Tom Peters was in front of you. Councillor Peters.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can't see we're getting any benefit whatsoever out of these JOs, and it's just another layer of bureaucracy, and it's costing us more and more. All we're doing is funding the government to set these things up. And I think it's completely unnecessary, and I think we should opt out as soon as possible. I don't think we should even go for the 12-month period to find out what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bronwyn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Similar lines, I'm wondering what the premise for the large increase. What is this funding supposed to be spent on? Is it bureaucracy? Or, and I mean, as Terry has said, it was clear the intention that, they did say that, give us greater capacity for advocacy, for lobbying, for joint bargaining chip, basically. I don't see that as being forthcoming. I think if we do pass this, then we pass it on the basis that it is made very clear in writing, as per Greg's statement, that we're not happy with the situation, not happy with the increase, or the output of being part of the JO, and has the legislation been altered that we can actually leave a JO now? How is the pathway there for us to leave?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. C, did you want to comment on Councillor Bronwyn's last comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The legislation is very clear. There's no exit clause, but that doesn't mean that the same way we entered into it, which was by proclamation, that we write to the government asking it to be proclaimed that we no longer want to be in it. Councillors would remember the regional organisation of councils, which we were in. I didn't have a lot to do with it. Probably about the first 9 or 12 months I was here, the ROC was still operating. And the ROC actually operated pretty good.
Yep.
About 6 months ago, I was asked to fill out a survey based on collaboration and shared services that Tenterfield were buying. And not all of the councils in the JO responded. About 4 or 5 did. I went to a couple of video conference meetings, and Tenterfield Council already collaborates, purchases or sells, or has more shared services arrangements than any other 4 councils in the joint organisation anyway. For example, we buy water off Southern Downs, and we've got an MOU with Southern Downs. We're in BROC. We sell water to Kyogle. We've done some joint training exercises with Kyogle. We hire a street sweeper off Southern Downs. We supply internal audit services to Southern Downs and vice versa. We share a building surveyor with Kyogle. We share bridge building disciplines with Walker, Kyogle and Glen Innes. And there was many other things as well. When we added up the amount of shared services that we do, which I think from memory was about 10, the next best was about 4. So what the state government wanted JOs to do was to provide a platform to lower costs by sharing resources where each council individually didn't have the economy of scale. We were already doing that. And if any opportunities come up in the future, another one was with Moree, and I forget the other council, but there was 3, with the Crown Lands and the native title stuff. That was another one.
Exactly right.
I can't remember the exact details, but I remember it was Moree, Peter, and there was another.
Yeah, Narrabri.
Narrabri?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other one is we'll be talking to Narrabri. There's a company in Narrabri that recycles plastics. And, you know, Narrabri is a fair distance from here, but that doesn't mean anything. They're in the, we'll be doing that, and that's not through the JO, that's privately. So there's a lot of things we're doing. I'm really hopeful that something good's going to come of it, but I've really got my doubts. The recommendation was written in such a way so that we can suck it and see for another 12 months, but it would be a different recommendation altogether if in 12 months we didn't get at least $13,000 worth of value out of it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Peters and Councillor Very, you've still got your hand up. Did you have other questions to do with the report? Councillor Peters and Councillor Very?
No, I'm pretty right. I'll just put my hand down.
Councillor
I'll just put mine down too.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bronwyn, you've still got your hand up? No, you've got you. Did you have another question, Councillor?
I put up again because I just wanted to know, what is this increased money based on? What is it going to be spent on? Is it bureaucracy or what? Why do they want now such a big jump?
Well, the main reason, and I'll answer that, Councillor, then I'll answer a couple of other things. I'll try and make it short. The main thing I see is with our running costs, we do have what we call a Terry, a general manager, 3-day week, is she?
An executive officer.
Executive officer, thank you. She works 3 days a week, and obviously there's a wage involved with that, Councillor Bronwyn. So I see that's the main running cost of the CE. Councillors, I really respect your comments and I commend you all. It's something that I've had grave concerns and I am honoured to be a deputy chair of this. I'm with the CE. I want to see this thing work. The CE raised a really good point with the other day. where the first real opportunity the JO had to put those submissions in because the government was asking from the joint organisation to do it the New England Highway from Tamworth to Tenterfield. It should be the Wallangarra, but that's another argument. And Tenterfield and Uralla were the only one that had submissions in. And Fiona, I commend you on the short time you had with that to the stand of the submissions that went in because they're looking to support projects for the $140 million. And then that's not enough money, but Tenterfield blew them out of the water and Glenninnis had done nothing, Armidale had done nothing. So, yes, all I ask for, and I respect your comments and your votes, is that we do stick with it for 12 months. I am disappointed with that fee rise, but we tried. And we're bringing this back to council to get a recommendation, and I'll respect and take on board whatever the council thinks. So if there's any other comments, and I'll put it to a vote. No other comments? So what I will ask is the voters against. So I'm looking for the hands on the, put your hands up. Okay, so I've got Councillor Vary and Councillor Rogan and Councillor Peters are voting against. Please yell out if I've missed someone. But we don't accept the recommendation, so the recommendation's up. Thank you, councillors. The other councillors, you want your names recorded?
No.
No.
Yeah, I'm happy to have it recorded.
It's an offer.
Immaterial, either way.
Right, mate.
Yeah, no matter.
Right, I thank you, and I really mean what I said, but I'll be working hard to make it work for the 12 months. Page 93, councillors, we move into the financials of our meeting. GOV 18/20. How are we all travelling? You want a short break or you're going good?
Oh, I'm going good, Pete. I was just going to suggest that it would be good to say to the JO that this got over the line, but there were councillors against, and a lot of us were very borderline against as well.
Yep.
It was touch and go.
No problem.
Anyway, I'm happy to keep.
The rest is everyone's in a good spot. I see you drinking a bit of coffee. You're tonguing for a smoke, but I'll survive. Page 93, item GOV 18/20, finance and accounts, period ended February 2/20. Moving to seconder here, please, councillors. Taking you, Councillor Rogan, as a mover, and you, Councillor Vary, as a seconder. And I'll hand over to you, Paul, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And through you, yes, this is the report for the end of February. We didn't have a March meeting, that's why we're putting up February and March's this month. As you can see, as at the 29th of February, we had 2.356 million in the general account, 313,000 or thereabouts in the trust account, and there were no concessions granted under Council's concealed water leakage policy for that month, and the investments as at 29th of February totaled $30,266,250.13.
Thank you, Paul. Councillors Vary and Rogan, I've got you with your hands up. Did you have a question for Paul to do with the report?
Mine was to you, Mr. Mayor. Can we put the whole...
Sorry, I've just brought mine down.
No, thank you, Councillor Rogan. Councillor Vary, I'll go to you.
Yeah, mine was we put the whole four of these reports up together.
Happy to do that. Councillor, do I have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Councillor Tom Peters, I'm taking you as a seconder. Please try and use your hand thing, Tom. So, councillors, just to get so we're all on the same page. So, Councillor Vary will go from page 93 to page 103, yeah, in the hard copy. So what I'll do, Paul, if all the councillors are in favour, we've done the first one.
Yep.
So we'll do GOV 19/20, GOV 20/20, and GOV 21/20 all together. Is there anything, Paul, that you wish to speak on those reports?
No, nothing from my perspective. Only if people have questions.
Councillors, was there any questions to Paul to do with either of those four reports? Councillor Berry, you still got your hand up.
No.
Did you have a question?
No, I haven't. I just
No.
didn't take it down.
No, that's fine. Thank you, councillor. Righto, Paul, thank you for that. And that's all in unanimous that we accept all those reports. Beautiful.
Yep.
Move on to page 104. It's item RC9/20. We start with our reports from delegates and committees. So to do with the Audit and Risk Committee. I have a move and a second. Councillor Forbes, you're in attendance. No, yes, you were. You happy to move that report?
Yes, I am, yeah. Okay.
Can I have a second, please, to move this report? Thank you, Councillor Rogan. I'll hand over to Erica. Did you want to speak to the report?
No, no, I don't wish to know.
Thank you, Councillor. Erica, are you still there?
No, Erica's left the meeting, Mr. Mayor, so no, normally.
Did you wish to speak?
Look, I think it's reasonably self-explanatory, but at that meeting, most of what we went through was, as I said, our audits at that point in time, and one of the things that we had there was just the time frame for the completion of those internal audits, and we're just coming to the end of them now. So just waiting to see, and I think Paul's alluded to that as well as Erica, that we're just waiting to see some of the outcomes and some of the actions from a management perspective that we need to take with those internal audits.
Thank you, Kylie. So, councillors, no questions. Councillor Bronwyn, you have a question to the report?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. On page 107 at the top, I was just wondering what the key issue assessing the value of council's property, plant and equipment.
That one related to statements in and around the audit coming up from my recollection, but I'm happy for Paul to correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Bronwyn, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so it's just one of the things we have to do is, and we should nearing completion of, is having a policy around our asset renewals, and we've done some work on that, and we finalising that very shortly. So it's just around that, and also yes, as Kylie mentioned, assessing the fair value of our infrastructure, property, plant and equipment. You know, we need to make sure our valuations are correct. I've kind of alluded to some of the issues with valuations in some of the budget workshops, and especially in the water field with the dam in particular. So we need to review some of these things. The last revaluation of water assets was done in 2017. I'm not overly happy with the level of detail that was provided in that revaluation, and there might be opportunities for us to reduce our depreciation expense in that field. So we'll be looking at things like that as part of the process this year in terms of our financial statements.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor, so we're all happy to accept that report. We move on to page 110, your hard copy. It's item RC10/20, to report from the delegates and local traffic committee. Councillor Berry, in my absence, you chaired that committee. You happy to move along those lines?
Yes.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second it, Fred.
Okay, Councillor Rogan actually put his hand up. Councillor, any questions to do with the Roads and Traffic Committee meeting? Councillor Bob Rogan.
Yeah, thank you. Question for Councillor Berry, I guess. Some time back, I put in a customer work request / complaint or whatever on one of those formatted books that was to, and one part of the request was to forward it to the traffic committee, and I noticed there's nothing about it in this report. So I'm just wondering from Councillor Verry if you can recall whether it was actually presented to the committee. It was about parking on High Street in front of the Royal Hotel. Thanks. Sorry, Gary, if, yeah, there was a complaint about line of sight when they were exiting in their driveway from their accommodation at the back, or their customers were. If people were parked adjacent to the driveway, particularly if it was a van or a truck, anyone exiting there had no line of sight as they pulled out. They'd have to be out in the middle of High Street before they could see any oncoming traffic from the right. And I did request that that go to the traffic committee, but there's nothing about it in the report. So,
Councillor Rogan, Councillor Verry's still got himself on mute. Just get yourself off mute, Gary, if you can. Councillor Rogan, is that because of that big sign? And how long ago did you put that that complaint in?
Mr. Mayor, it was a few weeks back. And at the time, I thought, well, we'll get it in time for this this meeting. However, maybe it's got to go up to the main meeting. I don't know, but it's not really to do with the sign. It's as you come out of there, they've got a motel-style accommodation at the
yeah.
As you come out of the driveway, so we're talking about the Royal Hotel on the eastern side of that actual hotel building. As you come out
between there and the PP office.
The parking spaces that are marked on the roadway there on High Street go all the way up to basically the driveway. So if you had a vehicle parked in that last car space before the driveway, someone pulling out can't see. It was a complaint from the proprietor of the hotel, and we submitted the complaint on one of the complaint forms. And I thought at the time perhaps they could pull that one car space back and make it motorbike parking or something, so that at least give them a chance to see down the road. Thanks.
Well, Councillor Rogan, you are right. It's exactly where it needed to go, and I apologise. We were at a Brock meeting, I think. No, I was at Sydney Country Mayor, Councillor Verry, and I thank him for chairing the meeting, but it should have been in the agenda, but we'll make sure it gets there. And so I apologise, but you've done anything right. Councillor Michael Petrie, you've indicated, then I'll go to you, Bronwyn. Councillor Bronwyn.
I just a comment. I notice here you've got the zigzag line marking at the pedestrian crossings. I haven't really noticed them, but I put in an application about 5 years ago to have that done. Now, if it's done now, I haven't taken any notice. I just realised that.
It is supposed to be done, Councillor, but we'll follow that up. Did you want to reply there, Mr. CE?
Yes, as I drove down the street yesterday, I noticed the new paint, so it's been done.
I'll go to you, Fiona. Did you have a comment?
That's good.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment on the blacking out of some of the line marking around the area. There was work to be done where you're talking of at the Royal Hotel, also down next to the surveyors, where they've got the drive into the little parking area. But there's also going to be some, not reallocation, but just some realigning of the car parking after the garden beds have gone through to bring them back to a standard size. So I'm not sure that I've heard it in the traffic committee, obviously, but I have heard of it through work that Jack is having scheduled.
Thank you.
That's Gary Herning, I should say.
Yeah. Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. On page 114 at the top, the classification of Bruxton Way, are they really going to take until the middle of next year to decide whether to reclassify it? And the other one was on the page before, on number 7, the lighting request, with funding for lighting assessment and design at pedestrian crossings. I'm just wondering why we've engaged a consultant if it's a statewide sort of thingy.
Can you answer that, Fiona? Just to do with the lighting one, and I can speak on the classification of Brookston Way.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't quite catch the question.
Just the last part of the question, please, Rob.
Yeah, on page 113, item 7, it says lighting request in Rouse Street, New England Highway. TF New South Wales have secured funding for the lighting assessment and design at pedestrian crossings, and Tenterfield Shire Council has engaged a consultant to arrange assessment and design. I'm just wondering if it's broader funding, why have we engaged our own consultant to look at it?
I believe this particular one is a grant-funded lighting assessment given through the old RMS or Transport for New South Wales these days. I can't think of the actual amount. I think it's in the order of $40,000. But basically, we receive that money back in grant money once it's been done.
You're right on the money, Fiona. That's exactly what it is. The one. Yep.
Peter, just to answer Bob a bit better, all the parks in the town are being reassessed at the moment. And we're coming up with a plan for parking virtually right through the whole town itself.
Thank you, Councillor. Terry, did you have a comment there to do with that? I see you had your hand up before.
No, you answered that, Mr. Mayor, and Fiona answered it in relation to the reimbursement of the grant.
Yep. Just to your first part of your question, Councillor Bromwich, yeah, no, it concerns me too. Like, I mean, she used to be head of the NRMA. She's the head of this panel. I can't believe they're going to take that long. So we'll be in continued correspondence with the government and Minister O'Toole to make sure that yeah, that's quick enough. I got no idea why that takes so long to do all that. So I totally agree with you. Any other questions to do with the report, councillors? Okay, so we'll pass the report as unanimous. Page 117's item RC11/20, to report to do with the Country Mayors Association, March 6th. Being down there and the delegate, obviously, I'm happy to move that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor McNish, thank you. Happy to take any questions, councillors. Councillor Very, then I'll go to you, Councillor Bronwyn. Councillor Very? No, you're on mute, Councillor. Put yourself back on.
Yeah, sorry, I just put my hand up to second the motion, that was all.
Sorry. Councillor
No
Bronwyn,
question.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question, Councillor Bronwyn? You're on mute, Councillor.
Oh,
there you're right. Yep.
Sorry, obviously didn't press it hard enough.
No, you're good.
Page 117, the presentation by Rob Rogers, the
Yes.
then Deputy RFS Commissioner, who's now the Commissioner.
Yep.
He's got there over 45,000 invoices received from suppliers, of which 38,000 have been paid.
Yep.
Now, I'm wondering how those payments are going, because I understood some local providers here have not been paid since the fires, you know, which have been going, it's well over 6 months. And if you look at the earth moving people, that's a massive cost that they were carrying. And our local show society was carrying a lot of cost. And the concern there was items went missing from the showground, you know, like posters and kettles and all things. And the comment was, well, prove it, or prove that you even had them there in the first place. And the other thing was they were not willing to pay to help fix the arena at the showground, even though, which I know the showground's going to keep pushing, because they've got drone footage from before and after with all those trucks and choppers and everything else, because it's something like $28,000 it's costing the show society to top dress that that thingy. But I was very concerned whether should we as council be asking, are there any local providers who still haven't been paid by the RFS, so that we can add on their behalf.
I'll go to you, Mr. CEO. I know this is one of your little pets. Ours.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I spoke to Ross O'Shea from the Office of Emergency Management on Monday morning, and I spoke to Paul Della as well, and council still hasn't been paid from the RFS for the February 2019 fires either, despite the fact that we've got a list as long as your arm of people we've contacted, some on multiple occasions. I've written to Janelle Saffin about it. The Mayor has spoken to the Minister for Emergency Services. We've written to Deputy Fire Commissioner and a heap of other people, and even spoken to the New South Wales Governor about it.
That's exactly right.
And still haven't got the money. So I've instructed Mr. Della to refer the matter to Dun & Bradstreet, our debt collectors, and to send the Sheriff to Macquarie Street.
And that's true. Yes, I'll just speak before I go to you, Councillor Bronwyn. It was actually the Governor General in that phone hook up to him the other day, Mr. CEO. We raised that with him. And he was hoping to rattle some cages. You all still online? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, no other questions to do with the report?
Can you just start your camera again, please, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I can. Kyle, just bear with me.
While you're doing that, Peter, I was just wondering what amount is council now owed by the RFS in round figures?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's around 60,000 in round figures.
Yep, thanks, Paul.
And we're not the only council in this boat.
Yeah, yeah. But to go back, and Rob seems a good bloke. I had a yarn to him, you know, after he presented, and I did ask the question from the floor because they're treating us like this February fire never existed, and, you know, it was a Section 44 and whatever. We let them again. But anyway, it's been a long battle, that one, so.
So is that 60,000 just from the February fire or all up?
It's the February fire. Mr. Mayor.
Can you let us know what is owed to us all up, please? Can you come back to us later? From like the fires in February and the fires from September through to February this year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we can come back on that one.
Yeah, because it should be a considerable amount. So, thanks.
And we have received some payments for some of the later fires and also for the February fires, but there's an amount, as I say, outstanding from the February fire still of around 60. And I can provide you with information as to what's still outstanding for the other fires.
I'll just go and see what's happening in the Mayor's office. Obviously, there's some sort of technology malfunction.
While Narlene's doing all that, I hope you're all enjoying your virtual cake and cookies.
Absolutely.
Doing wonders for my figure.
Virtually not.
I won't tell you what I had.
So you've still got audio though.
Now, there we go.
You've still got audio though, so.
Oh, they can hear my voice, but I can't hear anyone.
Well, you're on mute at the moment. Oh, you can't hear it.
I can hear you, Mr. Mayor. Loud and clear.
Yeah, you're on now, Peter.
No, thanks, mate. That's good. Thanks, Dave. Apologise, councillors. Move on to page 139. It's item RC 12/20, reports the committee's delegates, Murray Darling Association Strategic Plan Workshop, 12th and 13th of March. Can I have a move in the second here for this one, please? Councillor Forbes, I'll take you as a mover. Councillor Sawyer, I'll take you as a seconder. Any questions to do with the report or comment?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I just missed who was the mover.
Right, I've taken Councillor Forbes as the mover.
Yep.
And Councillor Sawyer as the seconder.
Thank you.
No problems at all. Councillor Sawyer, I've got you as a question or a comment.
Comment in a minute, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forbes, I've still got you with a hand up. Did you have a comment to do with the report?
It's not specifically to the report, but just a comment about the annual general meeting, which is to be held in Shepparton in July. That looks like that may be cancelled for obvious reasons, and but the national conference, should I say, is likely to be cancelled, but the annual general meeting may still go ahead. They can do that on Zoom apparently, so I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. That's all.
No, thank you for the information, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Peters, and I'll go to you, Councillor Bronwyn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Something I was just wondering whether it came up at the Murray-Darling Association meeting is water meters. Was that discussed at all? Because no one seems to know what's going on with that. Thank you.
What exactly do you... Sorry, Councillor, you go.
I don't recall, Tom, but you can check online. There are a lot of issues raised, and there's been a dot point, summary of all the points that were raised, and it'd be on the Murray-Darling Association website. What was raised, of the detail of it at the workshop. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Councillor Bronwyn, you had a question? You're on mute, Councillor.
You're on mute, Bronwyn.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
You're right. Start again.
I bet you wish you could do that to me all the time.
Ah.
The Murray-Darling,
Never.
The name change, it says it'll be further discussed in Moama. I was just wondering when that was supposed to be. The other thing with the meters, Tom, in this report somewhere it does say that the metering thing has been delayed, and part of that is because at page 146, second point, it says the metering projects have been extended. This is on the floodplain harvesting and metering projects. And part of the reason for that, I can tell you from Irrigators Council, is that because there was no water in the system, they haven't been able to test a lot of the different meters that they've now given the tick to, so they can't do the calibration tests. So now that there's water running through the system, that may alter the time.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Forbes, you got your hand up. Did you have a comment or an answer question there?
No comment at all, no.
Councillor Sawyer, I'll go to you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In regards to Councillor Peters' comment about the metering, it was raised at the Toowoomba conference, an AGM. They were having those issues that was just referred to then, so it's ongoing but no resolution. The other issue is we got some communication through from the chair of Region 11, John Campbell, from Gunnedah, advising that we need to appoint, well, not appoint, but endorse anybody that's seeking nomination to the executive at the AGM of Region 11 to be held on the 11th of June. Currently, we have 3 delegates approved by council, 2 of which are on the executive. From my perspective, and certainly from a ratepayer's perspective, I think that having those 2 executive members adds a lot to the cost to Tenterfield Shire, which is disproportionate to the rest of Region 11. Because we have people prepared to put their hands up and nominate for executive, we just get elected on there and the others sit on their hands and do nothing. And the cost involved of attending down to Moama is quite expensive to Tenterfield Shire on a pro rata basis. So my thought would be that moving forward that we only endorse the nomination of 1 of our delegates to stand for the executive role. I was going to raise it at our meeting in September. I think we have it for allocation of committees that I think we don't need 3 in total, we only need 2. As I said, it's adding an additional unnecessary cost to Tenterfield Shire. Ratepayers bear that cost, and we've got to find some savings for the budget next year anyway. So I think this is probably the first step to make, that we only endorse one person to nominate for the executive out of our 3 delegates.
Councillor Sawyer, did you want to tidy this up at this meeting or bring it back to our next, in a report to the next council meeting?
Tidy it up now if we can, Mr Mayor, for the simple reason that we have to send them through a copy of the minutes where we name our endorsement of whoever's seeking election to the executive.
Right, just a bit of help, because the next report we got is the report of the committees and delegates, and then we've got this, the report of Murray-Darling Strategic Planning. Would it fit better with this report to tidy it up here? With the report we're in, Council, I'm happy for you to move a motion along those lines. We just added in this recommendation.
Add it to this recommendation.
That council only have 1 delegate. Do you want to just have the, and the mayor be the... No?
That from our 3 delegates, council only endorse 1 to be on the executive committee.
Righto. And that's the motion?
Yep.
Righto. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it, Peter.
Councillor Peters, thank you. Councillor, do you wish to nominate or just leave it open for that?
Well, the request from Region 11 was that we endorse someone, so there'll have to be nominations done. We can do it as a separate motion.
Are you happy to take on the job, Councillor? Mr Deputy?
Yep. Yep.
You happy with that as the seconder, Councillor Peters?
Yes. Yes.
No one against? Councillor Very, yes?
I just wish to say I don't know why we're on the Murray-Darling committee in the first place. I don't think it's really. That's all I was going to say.
You raised it's a bit like our JA. We went a few years ago and when we discontinued our membership, and over the last couple of years, and it's council resolution that we joined again. Once again, it's a council decision. So it is. So I've just got Mr. CEO. Did you have a comment? And I'll go to you, Councillor Bronwyn.
Yes, Mr Mayor, through you. I see the advantage of keeping an eye on what's happening with the Murray-Darling, mainly due to the Mole River Dam at the moment, because eventually it flows into that system, and for no other reason than keeping track on what's going on. It's very difficult to do it, through quite long reports. But if you've got someone sitting there with their ears open, as soon as they hear something with the Mole River or Jamerick or the Border River catchment, their ears can prick up, and if they have to, they can defend council's position in relation to the Mole River Dam, Mr Mayor. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and I hope that to explain that a bit, Councillor Very, but yeah, we're just guided by the council. Councillor Bronwyn, you've indicated?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just endorsing what the CE has said. I push that we should go back on this committee, and part of that is not just the dam as part of the regulated rivers that comes to the basin, but also because of all movements within the water space affecting water on farms, etc., etc. And we have got farmers on the side with applications or no applications, and it comes right down to farms on, dams on farms. So we have to be able to know what they're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Bronwyn. So the report's there, councillors, all in favour? No, I'm sorry. Apologise, councillor.
Need to just tidy up the last line of that motion. It should say that Tenterfield Shire Council endorses the nomination of Greg Sawyer as member of the executive, because that doesn't mean I'm going to be elected. It just means that we're
nominating you.
Yourself as a nominee, yep.
Thank you for pointing that out, councillor.
Endorses the nomination, Nolan.
Of councillor.
That's fine.
Councillor Sawyer.
Yep.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Berry, you still got your hand up. You don't mean to do that? Thank you.
No.
No, you're good. Righto, councillors, we move on to page 143. It's RC 13/20. It's the report from the Murray-Darling Association, 20th February. Councillor Sawyer, reports by you. Wish to move that report?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Have a seconder, please.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Got Councillor Berry up there just before you, Councillor Peters. Thank you. You wish to speak to report, Councillor Sawyer?
It's self-explanatory, but again, it was probably a disappointing attendance, which is the major problem. I think that's going to be the focus for the next 12 months for the incoming executive, to try and get more people to participate. And that was probably the background to why I moved that we drop back from 2 executive members to 1, to put the pressure on the others to stump up. It's just, some people just don't turn up to the meetings at all, even though there is the ability to do it by Zoom, but the minutes of the meeting are very thorough as usual.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we went out to Gunnedah to attend that one, Councillor, whether it was the previous report or this one. One time it was very poorly attended, which is a shame.
Yeah, there was you and I and the Gunnedah people, and that was
That's
about
right.
it.
That's it. Anyway. Okay, the report's there. Councillors, any questions to Councillor Sawyer? If not, I'll take it they're all in favour of accepting the report. Move on to our last item, councillors, page 152. It's item RES 3/20, council resolution register for April. Go and move it a second here, please. Councillor McNish, I'll take you as the mover, and Councillor Berry, I'll take you as the seconder. Thank you. Mr. CE, did you want to present the report? Mr. CE, got your mute on.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept questions by exception, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions to our CE to do with the council resolution register? Councillor Bronwyn, I'm taking you as a question.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just regarding the digitisation of technical show for the technical family history group to get the original parish and portion maps, where would they be held? Where is it, library or where?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask Kylie to answer that, but my recollection was the building next to the School of Arts temporarily.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Harry's actually got some area there where they can keep those so that they've got easy access. They do actually still have their meetings within the library space.
Are they there yet?
Yes, I believe so.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks, Kylie and Terry, for your reply. Any other questions to our CE? Okay, councillors, if that's not the case, we'll come to the end of a very, very interesting morning. I thank you all very much. And I really appreciate everyone's efforts to make this work, and especially to Nolene and Dave and the staff and all our senior staff and to our CE. And I wish you all well, and hopefully we'll come to the end of what we're doing. But council's been very supportive and done a great job. And I'll close the meeting, and the meeting's ended in peace and harmony. I thank you well.
Bye, everybody.
Look forward to them.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Mr. Mayor, can you stop the recording, please?
Yeah, no, I'm going to get it here in a minute.